Hello and welcome. Today is about learning to paint a lake, a river, or an ocean. Some of the different techniques used for each of those. We're going to use a very limited palette today of Ultramarine Blue, Prussian Blue, Burnt Sienna, and maybe even some white gouache. I look forward to painting with you. Get your supplies ready. I've started off by just drawing a sketch that you probably can't see on camera, but this frame is going to be a lake, this frame will be an ocean, and this frame will be a river. And I wanted to do all three at once just for simplicity's sake. I think sometimes on video it's easier to see the different techniques if you lay them out together. We're not going to go into detail. We're focusing primarily on the water and then just doing a light wash over the rest. I will show you the finished pieces at the end of the video. We're starting by creating the sky for each piece. So I'm just wetting down the sky on each area. I like this filbert brush for laying in the water because it goes very fast and I don't have to worry about it. And we're going to do just all three skies at one time to lay in this wash of the sky. And I think it just helps keep our attention on the water and not worry about that big blank space. I'm dipping into some ultramarine here, just pulling some out, just very lightly. And I'm not even going to try to dampen my brush. This sky, I'm just going to have it sweeping in this direction. Okay, I am going to make that top deeper because when you look at the sky, you notice the horizon line is always lightest. And these are all very simple skies. We're not trying to focus up on clouds or anything like that today. You can do whatever you want on your sky. These are your skies. You do you. I just tickled pink that you are here painting and practicing with me. This brings me joy, and I hope it does for you too. And I want this to be a space where we can work together on painting without feeling super intimidated by everything the artist does turning out right, because this is not that channel. Okay, and there we have our skies. Now I'm going to grab some Prussian Blue quite a bit. I'm not worried if it mixes in with the ultramarine, that's fine. Nobody cares. It's paint, for goodness sakes. I'm going to do a very quick wash of the watercolor on my ocean. And the ocean will actually change watercolor a little bit as we get going. And I'm just doing, again, a very light wash. This is all going to dry quickly because it is such a light wash. Because the ocean is actually, to me, one of the harder subjects. The ocean has so much variation. It is not just it is not calm. I'm just laying in that wash. I'm bringing that color up higher with my brush because I really didn't want to lay in that bottom part so dark. I will deepen and darken this upper part. Ooh, see, I told you we're not perfect over here. Huh, proof. So I'm gonna rinse my brush. I'm gonna dab it on my towel. And I'm just gonna lift off some of that super heavy color there. Tap it off on my towel. Lift off a little bit more. Eventually, I do want that area pretty dark. I just didn't want that like heaping look of color there. All is not lost. And all I'm doing now is I rinsed off my water, and if I go a little ways over the land, I am not really concerned about that. It's okay to do that. All right. Oh, no. Did you see what I just did? That was a nightmare. Okay. We can always fix things. We're probably going to have some blooms in this because of that little error in judgment I had. I'm going to dry off my brush and see if I can't straighten out a little bit of it. If you add pigment on the dry brush, okay, and go over a very wet area, I have found for me that it helps smooth it out. And yes, I'm making that part pretty dark, so I'm not trying to overwork it. But being new to YouTube, videoing, all of that, painting, because I am also a beginning watercolor artist. You are not learning from an expert today. You're learning from someone who makes plenty of mistakes. Now we're just going to throw in some water for the river. And we're going to start off really solid. And the river one honestly scares me the most. Okay. I'm not even trying to fib about it. Now here, I am leaving a boatload of white space. Okay. I'm going around a couple of areas that are going to be rocks. So on the river, we are just doing some dry brush. And dry brush, it doesn't mean everything's totally dry. It means that you have a little bit of moisture in your brush, but you tap it off, and then you're very lightly hitting the surface so that you get those marks that leave like white space on the page. Now we're going to take a break, let all that dry, and I will be back. Now here on the ocean, what we're going to do is I've got some water on my brush, just a little. I'm tapping a little of that water off. I'm dipping into this Prussian Blue, loading my brush, tapping a little of the water off, not much. And the key here is remember that waves are lighter than the rest. And in the back, your stripes need to be really small to indicate that there's some waves back there. It's smaller to the back of the painting and darker there. And as you move up, your waves are going to get further apart. And try to be random here. Do not try to do like soldier waves. Waves don't come all in a row. And I'm going to start curving these to be in the direction of the shoreline, because these are coming in, okay? So notice there's a lot of lighter space in between. That light space is actually the top of waves, okay? So here we're going to start getting more, a little more detailed. A wave actually kind of swoops. It's like a stretched out M. Okay, so we're gonna do like that, okay, and where one comes up, another one goes down. And they don't have to be perfect. We're not trying to write the alphabet, but we just want that indication that those waves are there. But there's a lot of variation in ocean color. So I also took the liberty of mixing up a little sap green into the Prussian Blue to get this light wash of this color that is always closer to the shore. And I want to drop that, and you can't really tell the difference, you know, probably in the camera, but I like to drop that at the bottom of waves, like in that little crook. And there's a reason for that. Now I'm going to spread that on out to make sure I don't get a puddle somewhere. And then I really want to use that color a lot up here near the shore, okay? Because near the shore is always a lighter value since it's shallower water, okay? And we're going to leave that right there for now. We will use some white gouache, a little bit, just a tiny bit on the top of those waves. And then when we build in the sand, we use some white gouache to show that surf. But we are, for now, done with the ocean. You have the concepts, do the lines, okay? The lines indicate the movement. It indicates the variation. We could darken this up, but I kind of like it the way it is. So for mine, I'm gonna leave it here. Now let's move on to the lake. So now I'm gonna drop into that paint. I'm gonna tap onto my towel. And what I'm wanting is a dry brush effect. See how it makes those lines and stripes? And it's because if the light is shining in from here, you're gonna get all of that glistening on the lake, okay? There, I like that better, okay. And you have to kind of scrub your brush around. You can use an old brush for this. I prefer to just use this one because it bounces back. It's a Princeton Neptune, so it bounces right back into its little pointy shape pretty good. And here I'm just going to accentuate some of those lines to leave that lighter space. You don't want that hard edge because this is water. So by putting in these lines starting here, you can actually ease that hard line so that it doesn't affect your painting. Let's move over to the river. The river is really one of the hardest ones for me, and it's because the river is in motion, okay? I don't know about you, but I am struggling with things in motion. So I'm trying to settle my painting into where I can reflect the motion. So here I just really want to swoop along where the river is, okay? And I don't want to run over my rocks. So when the river is hitting the rocks, the river is going this way, here's the rock, so that water has to come around that rock, and there's going to be white space behind the rock up onto the rock. So you have a really dark space right here behind the rock. And all I'm doing is just taking some really light lines behind that rock, okay? Now, I'm just putting some dark lines next to the rock and then extending it to where those lines are. Now it's going to be hitting this rock. We're going to make these lines and we're going to swoop, okay? And it just helps indicate and give the impression of the motion that is going in with this water. So we're just indicating that motion. Now, some of this river, I'm getting some really dark pigment on my brush because back here, okay, we just need some motion that the river is coming down. And what happens is the river, it splashes into this area, but that means this area is calmer. So we're going to put more of the splashing running in the river over this way. And it's going to actually kind of do this. But then this little pool here is calm. It's just sitting there peacefully waiting for canoes to wreck into it. Trust me. If you've been on enough canoes, you know that's exactly what happens. Canoes wreck into the calm water because they just came off of a rapid. But it's like an S, okay? And that's how you get that motion into the river. So for now, this is the final version, and I'm going to finish up the painting and then I will show you all three finished versions. And there you have it. All three paintings are pretty much finished. I'm dipping into just a little bit more of white gouache and just adding some more highlights to this. You can see where I've already added some. But because this lake painting I didn't do the dry brush the way I wanted to, this is how I'm correcting my mistakes. and just tapping in a little bit of that gouache just to show some reflection in the lake water. I need to add in a little bit of shadow here along the bank side. All right. And so I just want to start painting in a little bit of the shadow from this little hill. And I'm just painting it in dashes, okay? I don't want it to be a full shadow because this is water in movement, and it's going to be darker up here closer to the shore. Some more dashes there, less out here. Just kind of shows where the water is reflecting that little mountain. And you're not looking for perfection. You're just looking for a shadow. And I am fairly pleased with how these turned out. Again, I am a beginning color artist or watercolor artist just like you. So you cannot get intimidated by this channel. This is by a beginner for beginners so that we can grow up in watercolor together. Thank you so much for coming to the video. Please like and subscribe if you get a chance, and I look forward to seeing you next week.